It's destigmatizing soil, and that's what it's all about. We, as Black people, have looked at soil as, a burden. It's burdensome. The outdoors in general as burdensome. So there's a lot of movements outside of just farming, just outdoor movements that are, re-ushering Black people back into these spaces where they've been traumatized. No matter what you touch each day, the food you're drinking, the beverages you're having, the clothes you're wearing, even the tables, that you're eating, the cabinets that your food is housed in, everything starts with agriculture. You interact with agriculture every single day. Agriculture is the culture. You are who you are because of a farmer somewhere, sometime. When you control people's food, you control them. And that's the power that they didn't recognize they had as they were farming. So I am really giving people their voice back and reminding them who they are. We all have farming in our lineage. This is what I remind people, no matter what your ethnicity is, your background, like our families were farming because they had to, because that's the only way you could eat. Even in a village, like people knew who their farmer was. And so this is a reintroduction to either you're gonna know how to grow your own food or you should at least know who your farmer is. That is the bare minimum of how we actually can even say that we're even getting close to what health should be for us.
Today we have a very special guest, Christa Barfield, and FarmerJawn, as people know her.
Jawn.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, well, that's great. I'm here for that. And I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you for making the trip.
I'm so happy to be here. Yes, Canada's been good to me thus far, so I'm very happy. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Can I start us off with?
Sure.
Just boom right into it.
Yeah.
I wanted to start off with this wonderful slogan you have: agriculture is the culture.
Oh, we love that.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you, what does that mean?
Thank you for that question, because it really has become what my life's work is all about. It's a reminder for people that no matter what you touch each day, the food you're drinking, the beverages you're having, the clothes you're wearing, even the tables, that you're eating, the cabinets that your food is housed in, everything starts with agriculture. You interact with agriculture every single day. And it really is a thankless job, a thankless culture, if you will, as farmers and being in this industry. So many people don't recognize how much of what they interact with each day is because of a farmer, is thanks to a farmer. So it's a reminder for people to understand that, agriculture is the culture. You are who you are because of a farmer somewhere, sometime.
I like how you use the word interact instead of consume.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
And that's what we need to start doing as people. We need to start interacting with the outdoors, with nature, even with each other in a very different way. But yeah, I like that you made that. Yeah, that contrast.
I see so many parallels to so many things we've spoken about on here. And in my own life, like I've always thought about ideas of alienation, how we're alienated from the things that matter most. And this is another way of looking at that we don't actually see what's really behind all the things in our life. We're many steps separated from it.
And it wasn't like that before.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't know, the last perhaps 40 years, we got really disconnected. And a bunch of us are, reconnecting or trying to reconnect as much as we can.
At least desire to.
And, you're, in my opinion, you're one of many, I should say, not of the few, one of many that's really changing the game. And, I should say that, Chris, like you were there when we met Christa for the first time. There was a Rodale event.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, before we go into your story, because obviously we're here to hear you, not me, but I just want to say, like, I remember so much. There was one guy, really nice guy. He said, you know what, you really need to meet this person. She's a change maker. She's amazing. And I was like, okay, curious. And then we met that night. There was a cocktail party, and then I went to your farm. And then, you're one of the few people that I really follow on Instagram because I'm interested in what you do and your life's work. And 2 months ago, you got awarded with a James Beard Award. So that's pretty awesome.
That happened.
That's pretty awesome news, and we'll have a chance to talk about that.
Awesome.
That's just how it works.
Yeah. How I remember from our first meeting in person, was me actually speaking the French that I barely speak, but French is what led me to agriculture. So it was really nice to meet you. I had also been following your page, and I said, "Comment allez-vous?"
So nice, eh? So nice.
And you lit up. You lit up like, oh my gosh, nobody ever speaks to me in French in America.
And in a nice French too.
Yeah,
real nice French.
So it's it was just, it's nice to reconnect because, of how I even got to agriculture and then meeting you and then all of it. I just love the full circleness of it all.
Yeah, do we want to go down that rabbit hole of how you got to agriculture?
Yeah, definitely. I worked in healthcare for 10 years. My degree is in healthcare administration, so I just been around medicine forever. I'm raised by a healthcare professional, and I knew I was going to be in medicine. So I went, and I am the background of medicine. So the admin side, making sure everything runs, making sure doctors get paid. And I did that for 10 years and ultimately just got burnt out. And January 2nd, 2018, I quit my job. Gave them 3 weeks notice so I can train my team. January 19th, I turned 30. And then January 22nd, literally the last day of work for me. And then the next day after, I got on a plane to Martinique.
Martinique.
Yeah, I chose Martinique because it was a Francophone country. I had never been out of the country, and I wanted to be on an island. And the Airbnb host that I picked just so happened to be Black farmers. And they spoke French, and they drove me around the island, and then they just ended up taking me to their farm. And I was like, wow, I had never touched soil before 2018. And so just the fact that I grew up speaking French because from like 4th grade, primary school, all the way through college, that's what I did because that was the language that my school taught. We didn't learn Spanish. And so having that in the back of my brain for so many years and always loving the language but never fully developing it, I had a desire to. And so I chose Martinique for that reason. And then here we are. The whole reason why I am a farmer is because of those farmers in Martinique who spoke French.
Hey, before we get to them, what was the job that you left?
Yeah.
What exactly was that position, the title that you had?
Yeah, I was called a billing supervisor.
A billing supervisor.
Billing supervisor. Front desk manager, I think actually was the last title because I had been in that job for a while, that same company. So yeah, front desk manager was the last
so
title.
For somebody like me that doesn't know anything about that, was that like a big job? It was a big job.
Yeah, I can explain it like pretty quickly. When you walk into a doctor's office and you see those people that are asking you for your insurance card and your name, that front desk, how many people they are, those are all the people that I manage. So in my practice, there were 10 people at that front desk. We saw over 200 patients a day. We had 23 doctors in our practice, and on any given day, there'd be about 8 doctors that were working that day. So very high pace, very high volume. And so after all those visits are done, they all have to be billed. And so that very same front desk team is also responsible for billing. So I'm responsible for overseeing all that was done for the whole week. So we're talking about 1,000 patients every single week, making sure that we got paid for it.
And then you needed to pay for the building and the insurance.
Yeah,
was there ever problems of cash flow? Was that doesn't exist in the medical world?
$multi-million dollars.
No, cash flow is not an issue.
No, very, very different here. Managing other people's money and more so managing the operations of the money. So I'm not the controller or the accountant, right? So it's like I'm just making sure that the money actually is, the process for the money to get there is happening.
Okay.
Everything beyond that is not my business.
Okay. And Martinique, which is a beautiful island in the Caribbean. Is it in the Caribbean?
It is.
It's in the Caribbean.
My mother-in-law goes there like every winter. They were
That
just
makes
there
sense.
for 2 or 3 months. Yeah, because they're French speaking.
Yes, and so when I went, there were a number of French people on holiday, or just French speakers on holiday there.
That's common.
And what happened there?
And what do you mean?
When you went to Martinique, so you met these farmers.
Yeah, I did.
And then you hung out with them, and you started to be in the fields with them?
I went to their farm. No, so actually, hung out with them all day, and they were like, "Hey, we got to go to work," and I was like, "Okay, I don't even know what work is," but they're like, "Do you want to come?" And I'm like, "Sure." So we go. I go with them. I'm by myself on this trip, mind you. It's a solo, and I go with them, and we get to a place where I see them packing boxes of herbs and vegetables and fruits, all things that they just had picked that day. And then the real reward of that was me seeing droves of people coming in to pick up their box. And then there was an envelope that they slid 20 euros in, and they went on their merry way.
They had a CSA.
And I never knew what a CSA was. Never. I never even heard of a CSA. And so I'm watching this. Mind you, I just quit my job. So I'm watching this. I'm like, this is really cool. Like, this is community and economy all coming together at the same time. And I'm like, this is so dope. And so I leave there. I was only on that island for 5 days. I literally left that island and came back a farmer. Like, I was like, I'm going to farm. Still having never really touched soil. I wasn't in their fields. Like, I was just helping them pack boxes, like, and being one with their team. After all the boxes were out, like, I got to eat soursop for the first time. Like, they cut me a soursop open that they just picked earlier that day. Like,
what's that?
I don't even know what that is. Yeah.
Really? Oh, it's like this banana pineapple mix. I have a video of me eating it on their farm. I have to send. I'll show it to you. But yeah, I have pictures from that whole experience, just the lineup of the boxes with the envelopes on them, all of that. And I was like, this is dope.
It's wild how much that it just speaks to the power of awareness, I think.
Oh,
like it's, if you never saw that, you just would never know it. Like just seeing it, just being there changed your life. And honestly, same thing for me. 2014, the first time I discovered like young people farming. And even though I had maybe more experiences with some degree of like farming and around me in the suburbs of New Jersey, it looked distant. It was old men. Like, I just, it wasn't anything I could do. And then I met these young hippies, like, starting their own farm. And it just absolutely blew my mind that was even a possible option in life.
Yeah.
And that shifted my life like that just as well. Like that. Boom.
Yeah.
It's funny how there's a lot of people in our movement that doesn't come from they don't come from a farming background, and they don't have all the preconceived ideas of what it should be, what it could be, the limiting potential of it. They just come into it with fresh eyes. And I guess that's what happened to you.
And that's the benefit of like being able to have that fresh approach, that newness and excitement, right? Like, there's joy here, whereas that's not the story of a lot of farmers who are heritage farmers or come from the family of farming. They don't get to have that same spark.
Yeah.
So it's nice.
Yeah. I want to connect that story with basically your mission. And I noticed I think you've carefully chosen the word reintroduce.
Yes.
Farming into the lifestyles of urban people. It's not introduced. It's not like we're saying this is the first, it's a reintroduction.
It is.
And can you speak to that? I feel like that's so important.
Yeah, these are great questions, Chris.
I did research.
Yeah, but that reintroduction, that wording is on purpose. Yeah, it is so important because we all have farming in our lineage. This is what I remind people, no matter what your ethnicity is, your background, like, our families were farming because they had to, because that's the only way you could eat. And even before colonization and the way that has plagued our society from how we know it has, right? Before that, everybody was farming for themselves. Like, that's just how you did things. Like, even in a village, like, people knew who their farmer was. And so this is a reintroduction to either you're going to know how to grow your own food or you should at least know who your farmer is. And that is the bare minimum of how we actually can even say that we're even getting close to what health should be for us.
Yeah, and for so many urban people, it's multiple generations separated from it. So it is sort of like they've never seen it, like, and it's sad to think about that, but how powerful it is to realize that it can change by just showing, which is what you're doing.
Yeah, and I focus a lot on urban, and simply because that's where I'm from, but like and because that's where the majority of people reside in urban communities, right? And just denser populations. But I also now understand that even in the ruralist of communities, there's such a disconnect for them from their food as well. Even living by farms, because most people that live in rural communities live by cornfields, and so they still don't completely grasp what it is to be a farmer, and they think that commodity crops are what farming is, when that's still not even their food.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw your farm in Pennsylvania, and it's, you would think that people in rural countrysides, they're more aware, but no, these are food deserts in many ways.
Yeah.
Many places, they just don't have fresh local foods. They just have big fields of grains.
Right.
we're lucky that it's not that here, but if you drive half an hour,
Yeah.
it's like this is all that you see: big fields, big farms, and yeah, I think that's what urban farms. In my opinion, that's really the biggest role that it plays, is just to reintroduce this visual, this lifestyle, this thing into city life, where people can see it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Do you want to tell us about your you have 2 farms?
I do.
How you're set up with the farming?
Yeah, so we're a multi-site farm.
Yeah.
We cover 3 counties in Pennsylvania. And that 3rd location is a corner store that I'm working on. I have been for the last 2 years. So think about New York bodegas and take that concept and give it a food as medicine twist. And just think about if you knew when you walk into a corner store where every item came from, the health nutrition facts for each of it, and also like understood what the nutrition facts are. Like you turn around a bottle and it says carbohydrates, and nobody still knows what that means. Like people are so confused. So we're really just breaking down, and demystifying the true nutrition of food and what we're putting into our bodies. So that's one of our locations that I'm working on that I hope to multiply. That's the goal of that, FarmerJawn. And then the other 2 farms, one is very, very small, 1 acre. It's meant to be a training facility so that we can invite other farmers, specifically Black and brown ones, helping them to reinsert themselves into agriculture. And we show them like how to do the things, from the smallest to the biggest jobs on that smaller farm. And then our larger location is on 123 acres, and that is a big operation. It's new for me. I'm definitely building that ship as I sail it, and I love it. I have a really solid team, great farm managers at both locations, and a really great grocery manager as well at our storefront that sits on our farm in Westchester. So it's a really great operation that we're building out there.
Yeah, I saw that store. It's pretty big. It wasn't when I went. I don't remember when it was, but it wasn't. It was early in the season.
Yeah.
It wasn't filled, but I saw that it was like it's a big place.
It is
The corner job.
now. So the farm that sits on the store that sits on the farm in Westchester, which is the larger farm. Yeah. So it's a big place, like 3,000 square feet, and then attached to it is another like 1,200 square foot greenhouse. And it's all redone now. So it's completely done for this season. Big parking lot. Yeah. And it sits right in the middle of the field. So like as soon as you come in, you can go to the store, but then you can also take a walk around the farm and see the fields, which is nice.
Do you feel that your management skills, like I know the answer, but do your management skills of your previous job translate well to what you're pulling off with these farms together?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I will say yes in short, but also to elaborate on that is that how I did not like to manage is also how I can manage now because it's mine. And so that's the beauty of it. It's like the way I needed to manage people before, because I had a C-suite above me telling me like, oh, you have to chastise that person because they did this. It's like no, like I can literally manage people the way that people need to be managed, and give them my mindset is all focused on results. It's like, you are a human, you have responsibilities, you have a life, and we all have different personalities. Like we are not in a corporate structure, and so it's really about cultivating productivity. Is also what we're doing while making sure we're embracing humanity at the same time.
Yeah, making people feel responsible for what they do, and then just making sure that they get the results
that they also want. And that's the thing. It's like they also want the results. So it's not even something that is not unfathomable, So I really love this culture that I've been able to create. But my experience as a manager in my past life definitely has added to this and helps me feel confident in being able to do that, manage people.
Because Chris and I, we always kind of explore, how people got into farms, and definitely like having a high management skills and strategies with regards to management. It's not every farmer that has that.
No.
Like totally not. A lot of young farmers, they get into farming because they like to grow stuff. And then, their farm slowly grows from 1 person to 2 person to 5 to 10, whatever. And then they learn these things, these management practices. And sometimes it's rough because when you don't know how to organize, structure people, that's the part that in my career was the hardest to really structure that. At first, we were an intentional community.
Yeah.
So everyone would come and hang out. I think Chris's farm was also
yeah, we
like
were.
that.
Yep. Speaking on intentional communities, they used that language, the people that started my farm, and in the shower, like the bathroom, was like a list of products that you couldn't bring to the house. You know, like brands. That's how intentional it was.
Wow.
Like, you cannot have Head and Shoulders and this and that. It was very like
no multinationals.
And when I first saw that, I was like, oh, that's pretty badass. I better not bring my head in, because before that, I wasn't aware of that level of, intentional living. Sorry. A side that really sticks out to me.
Yeah, there's more. I mean, like now there's just more options from the time when you started to now. There was less options to say no to. There's more options to say yes to. Yeah.
With the education that you do, it's on both farms. There's education happening.
They are primarily on the smaller farm, the training farm, because a lot of people that we attract are from the urban community. And it is a little difficult to get people up from the other farm, which is an hour away from Philadelphia. So we do focus a lot of our energy on the training and a lot of the volunteering happening at the smaller farm.
And what does this education look like? Like, what are some examples of what you do?
Yeah, I mean, just putting people's hands in the soil. Like, this is when we're talking about reintroducing them. These are people, this generation and the generation before, and sometimes we even get older generation there that are remembering what they used to do. And that's what it is. It's like, okay, let me get you a pitchfork and let me show you what it is to take this compost and, put it in a wheelbarrow and then wheel the wheelbarrow. I'm sure you both know what being in farm shape is. Like every season, after every winter, I feel like I always have to get back into farm shape because when I do end up scooping compost or doing anything on the farm and my body is like, whoa, like, okay, let's get back into this. But so it's different when you're inviting people into the farm that you have to get them acclimated and you don't want to hit them too hard because it'll feel like they worked out for the next 3 days. But yeah, it's just really getting them just out, just being there is a big part of it.
It's like we said, a single awareness event can change.
It's true. And it's the visual. Yeah, it's the visual of being able to see like yourself in the space and like, oh wow, like I can actually do this. And you decide, a lot of people that we do train, like I have a cohort, it's called the Agripreneur Academy that I've done for the last 2 years. And we'll invite 10 people each season to come be a part. And it's kind of, learn as you go. They're not being paid to be there. So, and it's like they still have full-time jobs, most of them. So it's kind of like, this is your own, consider this your own space. Like you're welcome to come here. When we're here, we'll teach you what we got, whatever we're doing, you can join in with us and do the things. But a lot of people realize at the end of that they actually don't want to be farmers, which is valuable too, which is also valuable because we have all these people that are like, oh yeah, I want to be a farmer. This is awesome. And then they actually start doing the acts of farming. And it's like, oh no, I want to support farmers. And maybe I want to have a value added business that supports farmers, but I don't want to actually do the physical work of farmers. So we've gotten so many people that have realized that after going through the program.
Do you get some that want to stay on farms? Yeah,
there's some, but it's definitely more people that are like, but again, we're talking about urban folks. We're talking about very like, super city indoctrinated people that's what they do and can't see themselves like doing that hard physical labor, but they love the idea of farming.
You said so many things that sent my, I want to talk about that and that and that. But the first thing you brought up, well, you said they don't see themselves. And that reminds me of another aspect of your mission, which is like a lot of urban people, especially Black and brown people, they don't see themselves in farming. They don't see other people that look like them that are doing it. And I think that was a huge, from things I've heard you say, that's like a big piece of your mission as well, to show like, look, people that look like you can do this and can do it. And can you speak to that?
Definitely. It's destigmatizing soil. And that's what it's all about. It is, we as Black people have looked at soil as, a burden. It's burdensome. The outdoors in general as burdensome. So there's a lot of movements outside of just farming, just outdoor movements that are, re-ushering Black people back into these spaces where they've been traumatized. 16 million acres being stolen from Black people in America specifically over the last 100 years. There being 1 million Black-owned farms in the early 1900s to, now being like lingering around 30,000 and continuing to lose farm. The last ag census for America, we lost 6% of Black farms. And but we lost farmers overall too, just like from everybody, because it's just the industry. But just it's heavily desperate, and for Black people, it just is. So, I'm just trying to get people to be able to see themselves in the space and say like, okay, I can do this, or I want to do this, and just have that desire again, or at least again, like I said, that piece of at least knowing who your farmer is, because that's how we get back to the health and the wellness of all of us, just being able to like really care about what we're putting into our bodies and where it came from.
It's powerful stuff. There's a farm in New Jersey called Ironbound. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
The original mission of that place was kind of a lot of that. Like he is this guy. He had a mission of reinvigorating the workforce of Newark, New Jersey, actually, and he was employing previously incarcerated people.
Okay.
And it was a very kind of big mission he has. It's actually like a cider farm that grows apples, but also they have a huge vegetable farm, and my friend's farm there now. But and the impact he had on at least a few people that were from Newark, and they would come to the farm and work there. And now I think one of them is starting an orchard. Another one, their wife started a restaurant that uses local produce, and just like the ripple effect of just seeing and experience. Like, it's amazing. But it just made me think of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never heard of that farm, but that's cool.
Yeah.
They have an orchard that close too. We have orchards in Westchester, but you just don't know what all the different things that each state has to offer, each area has to offer when it comes to food. Like I never knew when I was younger, like growing up, like I remember bobbing for apples on a farm. Like that was my experience going to visit farms when I was a kid. I went on field trips, like farm field trips were like a norm, right? And that's the things that we did. We never were taught, like, this is where your food comes from. It's like we're going to go to the farm and we're going to get pie and we're going to get ice cream. And like even like mired what a farm should have been, which is like a bill of health. They mired it with like all the sweets that you can get from it.
Yeah. Like we come at farming from a point of where, reclaiming the local economy, because there's an opportunity when you grow stuff that you sell. You're kind of bypassing the whole system, the ag industrial system, and you're providing fresh food to people. But I've always felt that there's an economy to reclaim on that level. If you know how to grow, if you know how to market it, if you know how to keep it simple and not too big also, for me, that's part of the equation. Do you feel that the work that you're a part of and the communities that you're in, this is growing? Or is it stable? Or where do you see that? Do you think that I don't want to say on the winning side, that's not what I want to say, but are we kind of like taking more shares of the marketplace, creating more local food hubs?
Yeah, we definitely
around
are.
Philly and around where you are?
We definitely are. Yeah, there are more and more people that are creating ways to get food from farms directly to people. And or even creating our own agro industry, if you will. Like, becoming your own distributor, your own aggregator, like that. I'm seeing so much more of that. A really good friend of mine who's a farmer in Chester County as well just said that he and two other friends of his who are also farmers are starting their own distribution. So they're pretty much going to be talking directly to groceries and retailers and restaurants and just putting all their produce together to get it where it needs to go. And he was like, hey, do you want to join this? And I'm like, all right, yeah, like let me learn more about it. But like that's what it's about. It's like these big giant companies that have the huge refrigerated trucks. But it's a very tender line, right? Because we could become that too. And that's the other thing of it. It's like, but if we become that, like, how do we make it different and how do we make it more sustainable and not become what we despise? Yep. And that's also what we have to
that's the culture part. That's the call to keep it in culture, to keep it relevant, keeping it local. And for me, it's small-ish, not small in terms of being tiny, but the scale is really where it becomes tricky. When you have ideas of grandeur and you want to be like the biggest distributor in the US and that's your goal for the organization, it's like, whoa.
Right, and then you get lost.
You get lost a little bit.
But I do think there's a way to do that so that it does work. But it's about making sure that farmers are connected. Like that's what it has to be. It's the connection of farmers, and there's no such thing as competition. So it's like making sure that we understand that we need to work together. Especially if we have land, especially if some people have marketing skills. Like you said something amazing, which is true. It's like farmers don't typically have all the skills. There is somebody that's going to be better at marketing or somebody that's better at, just getting people to like them. Like all of that stuff is needed in order to run a business properly. And the fundamentals of farming, to your point about education, Chris, it's like, that's great to know how to farm, but to understand the business of farming is a whole nother thing.
This episode is brought to you by Bootstrap Farmer. Bootstrap Farmer is an amazing company. It's focused on making high quality, durable, and ecological products for farmers and gardeners. They really stand out for me because one, they manufacture their product right in the US instead of relying on overseas factories, and two, they're focused on durability and sustainability. This means no single-use plastics that you have to rebuy every year and no cheap, flimsy metal that won't last. Their hoop house kits are among the best out there, made of super thick galvanized steel that will stand out to the elements and last you a very long time, I guarantee it. And their seeding trays are absolutely indestructible. Believe me, we did a test here at the farm. A car ran over the trays and they literally didn't even deform. On top of that, Bootstrap team is passionately dedicated to seeing the farming community grow and thrive. And that really means so much to me. That's why I do what I do here at the Market Gardener Institute. So if you care about what kind of companies you support with your dollars, check out Bootstrap Farmer. You can find them out at bootstrapfarmer.com. Thank you, Bootstrap, for all you do. Love you guys. See you soon. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Ubi. Ubi stands for Out of Our Own Backyard, and it's an online platform built for small farms and food hubs just like you. So they'll help you increase sales, simplify packing, and optimize deliveries, all so that you can focus on what you do best, which is growing incredible food. Hundreds of independent producers are already using Ubi to sell directly to local customers and build thriving businesses. And here's a special offer just for the Market Gardener listeners. Mention the podcast at sign up and Ubi will give you 75% off the onboarding fee. That's right, 75% off to get you started selling today. Ubi, 4osby.com, putting small scale back at the heart of the food system. Do you help in that way?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's also one of the things I admire about your program and what you've offered through Masterclass is that, yes, you're absolutely farming and talking to people about how to farm and what to do and when the beets and carrots come. All that stuff is like there. But you also talk about the business of farming, like how to understand your numbers and make the numbers make sense for you. So you can grow. So you can grow figuratively and literally. And so we definitely dig into how to do the business as well.
What is the community like that you've created thus far by where you live, or that you've tapped into, or like what does that look like at your end? Because for instance, we have a local cafe that has a Farmer Wednesday night, and there's these little things that happen in the local community that it's all really around farming. I'm curious about any community building that's going on. Like what's the feeling in the air?
There's a lot of community building. I would love to see a lot more, because what I see is greenwashing, because I'm in a city. I'm like directly, there's a huge city right there. So it depends on where you're talking about, right? But I'm also in a very affluent community out in the county. So if we go to my farm 45 minutes away from Philadelphia proper, it's also affluent. So there's still people that don't understand. They have the same mindset as city people, even if they live near a farm. Yeah. So I like the idea of different restaurants who are making farmers important, who are saying like, we support farmers, because that's who the industry listens to, is the restaurants and the chefs. Mm-hmm. So they are the drivers for farming being important. the people who care about not having like the big refrigerated trucks pull up to them, once or twice a week, but are actually like cool with the pickup truck coming with coolers and ice with all their produce. So that is really where there's still a lot of space to improve in a city that's such as big as Philadelphia. And I think we're moving in a good direction. FarmerJawn being, we the accolades, all the work, me being vocal about things needing to change. I'm not scared to speak my mind, and so that's also super important in making sure that people understand where their food is coming from and giving them spaces to do so. Like I always say that farming has to be convenient in order for people to be able to interact with it. Otherwise, that's the whole mission behind FarmerJawn, is that I'm creating a corner store concept that you can get to that will not make you more and more unhealthy, that won't continue to proliferate that. Yeah,
and it seems like, I'm sure this is why you chose a corner store, because it's the most kind of quintessentially urban kind of type of environment with which to go get some food.
Yeah.
And so, like, what better place to shift the culture? Can you speak at all to, like, so the store, like, your first FarmerJawn is not open yet, or it's close? Okay.
Yeah, so not open yet. We'll be closer to the end of the fall.
And what would be like the success for that? Like, what would that look like to you for that to really make the kind of impact that you want to?
Go wild here.
Yeah, so I'm starting with the first location. I'm going to say that the biggest thing for me is that I want it to be how we used to use the corner store. Yeah. And it would be like, hey, my mom would give me $2 and she would like, go get me some eggs. Go get me a half a carton of eggs. Go get me a small thing of milk, like things like that. Like, I want that to be like where people go to go grab what they need real quick. Yeah. But also, if you're hungry during the day, kids playing outside would run into the corner store and they would get like whatever candy was there, and they would get a juice, something to drink, or they would get a hoagie is what we call them. Those are our sandwiches. Yeah. Like hoagies, Chris.
What's a hoagie?
Hoagie is what they call a sub in South Jersey and Philly. But if you're further north, it's a sub.
Yeah, so get a hoagie and you get a drink, and you would be in a bag of chips. Like, you would be able to get all of that, and you spend like $5 as a kid. And so as the economy changes, we have to make sure the prices make sense, which we will, but we'll also be able to accept SNAP benefits, which are, the benefits that help that come from the government, that are given to families in need to be able to still shop where everybody else is shopping. As well as still be able to interact with the people who have means to be able to purchase our food. So everything being available to everyone, no matter what your socioeconomic status is what corner stores have always been. And it just so happens that most corner stores tend to be in communities of color that have less. And so we are creating this model that's not dependent on socioeconomic status for you to be able to enjoy it. And everybody's getting the organic regenerative food, the fresh salads, soups, and sandwiches, understanding new and different flavors that are still familiar with what they love and what they're used to, preparations of food that are just better for you, but also understanding the nutrition behind it.
How do you get the pricing for that to work out? Is it because you're cutting off the middleman? Or?
So that's a huge part of it. And again, this is a model like where I've run the numbers multiple times, but you don't know it works until you do it, right? Mm-hmm. And so where being as though that we are growing the majority of our own food is where is going to be our saving grace. That's going to be where we see the numbers work in our favor, because we can have things that are different. We can have things that nobody else has because we can grow what we want. So we can be, the marketing piece of it is genius, because I can have like those amazing purple snow peas that you had yesterday. Like, I can literally do something fresh, new, and different and make it exciting. And that's what people get excited about. They get excited about food. But there also has to be familiarity too, because we know that even if it is something beautiful and dope to us, somebody will look at it and be like, because like this freckled lettuce, we planted tons of freckled lettuce at our farm this year, and I can only move it in CSA.
That's so funny.
It can't move in the market because people are like, what are those spots on there? So
I was going to ask about that next. That like, How does the challenge of, getting a lot of urban folks I imagine they might go into a store like this. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's really different, but they might be like, I don't want this. Like, I want my candy bar. I want the chips, like, because of what they're used to. And the same could be said for all kinds of, my childhood was like that. I would have wanted to go and get all the soda and candy.
For sure, me too.
How do you overcome that obstacle?
We still have it, but it's not the same. It's not that now you'll see spruce tip soda. Now you'll see peppermint soda. You'll see things that are fermented, and people will have to try it. So it is definitely going to be education. There's definitely going to be a hill. However, we'll be supported by the people who are interested already into this culture and like want to be a part of it, and then we have the opportunity to teach those who aren't, because we're still in there. We're in their neighborhood, so we right here in your neighborhood. Our first location is being built in Kensington, and in Philadelphia, that is the most unhealthiest neighborhood in the entire city. At the same time, it's also becoming the most gentrified neighborhood in the city. So it's this interesting juxtaposition between the two concepts, where you have people that have lived there their entire lives who are like wanting to not be pushed out of their own community where they've lived and were born and raised. And then you have this new people coming in that are transplants, because all these new high rises are being built. And so at the same time, these two communities do exist. And so FarmerJawn, me being a Black woman there, I get to stand for so much. I get to stand for the people who are from there, so they can see somebody that looks like them in their community. And then I get to also be a part of the community of the new folks who are coming in, giving them what they need and what they want, and what they're asking for. And at the end of the day, giving everybody what they need by providing healthy, organic, fresh food.
Yeah, could you speak to that idea of like ownership, of being owned by someone that's actually from the community? And because I feel like, of course, that alone probably makes a difference in that piece of getting people to take that first step and trying that different sodas. Somebody from the neighborhood that they recognize being like, oh, you're suggesting, okay, I think I'll do it, as opposed to just some random person they've never seen before that just came in. And it's
important. Yeah, it's like it's to see it, be it mentality. It's like, you trust people who look like you. That's just, how it goes with society. And that is important to me, to be able to be a pillar of hope for people, and to let them taste something that they would have never even thought or considered if it didn't come from somebody that looked like them. So we, as FarmerJawn, it's important for me to have a very diverse team as well. That's why that matters to me, because I want all cultures to be represented. So that wherever we go, we can make sure that we don't have any blind spots. Yeah. Or we're decreasing blind spots. Yeah.
It's interesting because there's, being the grocer, you really have a lot of, I don't want to say power, that's not, but opportunities to take, the veggies from that person or the sodas from these folks and really recreate what was before, like you said. That's exciting, because when we're just farming, we're kind of dependent on where we're selling. And there's a limit to that. But when you're a grocery store, a grocer, can you say that? A grocer?
Yeah, grocer.
Yeah.
That's like, it's interesting. It's like the restaurant here. Like, we buy from 60 different farmers and artisans, and then we just serve it.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting to kind of quickly jump on that idea, because that can fuel the rest. Especially if this takes off, becomes a success, then you're creating an opportunity for all these other people to sell.
Yeah, and that's the most beautiful part.
Yeah. So you obviously you saw that from the start, but not that many people see it, that far.
Oh no, they don't. Even just consumers don't see it that way.
Yeah.
Like, I think about like, if you do something. If somebody walks into your store and they don't love, like, they're like, oh, I would love, they're comparing you to a grocery store. Because, like, technically, I joke and say, like, one of my hashtags is Black Girl Grocer. But ultimately, I'm not a grocery store. I am very much a farm market. And, like, my corner store is very much that, like a bodega style store. So grocery store is so, when you think about it, it's so big. But it is a grocery store in how it used to be.
Yep.
Like how grocers used to be. Like, these are the items you have, and that's it. Where now it's just so, like, blown up. And so we look at big box stores and we're disappointed when we walk into a small store with less options. But they're all local. And you're not paying for the what they call the gas tax or whatever, like the additional funds just for transporting it. all of that. So yeah, it's difficult to get people to understand it, but that's what this work is. Yeah.
It's big work. Mm-hmm. It's big work. You think you'll get nuts and bolts at one point? It's like my grandparents, my father used to go to the general store to get his nuts and bolts. And,
it's true.
And I remember, like, my grandfather, he used to say that, he would dress up from the farm to go to the general store.
To go into town.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. They would change clothes for sure, put a fresh hat on.
Collared shirt.
And then he would go to the store because for him it was like,
yes, it's a thing to do. It's like a...
And I like that. I like that whole coming back to something that had, like for somebody that's been in the field all these years, like I like to be in the fields, but I also like to put a clean piece of clothes and just come to the restaurant and have a nice meal or whatever. And I feel there's something about that that's cool.
Well, it's the coming into society part. Yeah. Like, that's the reason why they would do it. Because my mother used to say something to me, and it's like, make sure you always leave home with clean underwear. And it would be because it was like, if God forbid something happened to you out there, you get hit by a car and they have to like cut your clothes open in the middle of the street to make sure to get you to revive you, you better be clean.
Love it.
Because you are a representation of me when you go outside. Yeah. And that's what it's about. And I think that it's the same idea. It's like, we were raised caring about what people thought about us. Yeah. Unfortunately, right? It's like, as much as I'd love to say I don't care what people think, that's not true for me at all in any way. And I think that was how we were all raised in some regard, like caring about how you look outside. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Taking pride in your appearance and who you are and your good name. Yeah.
Do you get pushback because of that sometimes?
Oh, for sure.
You do?
Yeah.
From the same people that you represent and kind of support?
No, I would say, it's hard because, like, I support so many because with this movement we're talking about food. Everybody is eligible. Everybody should be eating it.
Love it.
But if I'm thinking about Black and brown people, I have nothing but support. I can't even tell you if there was ever a Black or brown person that said something negative to me, except probably about the fact that I eat meat.
So it was a vegan.
It was probably something like that. But as far as just the general population, I get a lot of pushback just because, there's, in America specifically, 98% of farmers are white males. Yeah. And so because I am not that in any way, and the complete opposite, even religion, I'm Muslim. So there's just so much in regards to how I differ from just the normal current agriculture culture. Yeah. And so I get a lot of pushback, a lot. Like I'm constantly having to allow other people to fight my battles at this point because it really is too mentally exhausting to be able to have to do this work that I do at such a high level and then also deal with the peanut gallery. It's just not something I have the capacity to do.
Sounds brutal.
This is something that I want to explore with Christa, but it's just like I am so happy to hear that you're getting support from everyone, in your gang. Mm-hmm. Because it's not always like that. Sometimes it's not that. Yeah. And I'm happy to hear that because what you're trying to pull off it comes with the burden of leadership also, which is not always easy to carry. Yeah. And so super happy to hear that people are supportive and kind. Yeah. And they should be because the work that you do is important. Yeah. So.
And it's just limiting, your own mistakes. Like if you ever make a misstep, somebody is waiting, to be able to jump on it and be like, "Ha, gotcha."
You're not perfect.
Yeah. And so also just dealing with that, like, we have to humanize ourselves because other people won't. And then some people will, but like there are people that will not humanize you. And I don't put myself on a pedestal. And but you want to be likable to people. Mm-hmm. And so I just find it's definitely a game of playing. Like I told you, I'm definitely an introvert. Yeah. And whereas a lot of people will be like, "Oh, you're always out and you can talk well and you public speak," and I'm like, "Yeah, I can do all those things," but like, then how many days does it take me to get back so I can come back and do it again?
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. So,
did you know, Chris, that I'm also an introvert?
mean, it doesn't surprise me.
It's like we can do it. I can, public speaking and all of that, but it comes at a cost, and
absolutely,
you need to have time for it with yourself. Is it a good segue for the James Beard Award? Because it's kind of
you said leadership, so
and not that many people know about what the James Beard Award are. If you could talk to us about that and kind of what happened and what the prize that you were honored with. It's a pretty big deal.
It is. So it is the Oscars, if you will, the American Oscars for the food industry. Mm-hmm. And the Leadership Award specifically focuses on someone who's a change maker in the food system, who's working to impact how people see food and how the accessibility to food, the affordability of food, all of those things. And so I'm really honored that the James Beard Foundation found me in their committee, found me as even to nominate me, and then to say, like, let's go ahead and give her this award. So the James Beard Award traditionally have been to honor chefs and restaurateurs. And still, that is definitely what their main focus is. A lot of their energy goes towards that. JBF is a nonprofit, and so you do what your dollars allow you to, that are given to you, that are donated to you, and so that they're definitely donated to honor restaurants and chefs. That's where the big money is. So I feel like they are the only organization that I know of that is on that large scale, that is in that higher echelon, if you will, of the hospitality industry, that's making sure they don't forget the origins of food. And so that's really special. So they roll out the red carpet, quite literally. Yeah, it's like 4 days of events and parties and just industry all coming together to celebrate one another. And it's really beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. And I was truly honored to wear James Beard's face on my chest.
Yeah, and I saw the dress. It was so nice. Yeah,
thank you. I had a lot of dresses that weekend, but I for each day, like I said, there was an event. But I did Old Hollywood, all velvet with long velvet gloves that I wore with a simple red lip, and it was beautiful. Yeah.
How did that feel for you, and especially in terms of like? Because, it's awarding you, but it's awarding the work you're doing. Yeah. Like, how did it feel that what you're doing, what you're trying to put out into the world was seen like that?
Raising my voice. That's what it did. That's what I felt like. It gave me the opportunity to raise my voice. And it's like, I get to do an acceptance speech. Oh, great. Here we go. So like to just say, like, these are the things that people are doing great. And these are the things that you can improve upon. And this is, if we want to see real change for our future, this is where we have to go. And this is the steps that we have to start now in order for that change to even be possible. So I got to say all of that in my acceptance speech, which I loved. And I got to be honest so that people can understand what farmers are really doing each and every day. And they're submitting their bodies to soil daily, and we are in service to soil, and that's what we do. And I think that people need to understand how imperative that is, that not only that's what we've done, but that's what we do, and that's what we have to keep doing for, optimal health to be a reality for all.
And that's why you consider what you're doing now kind of a continuation of healthcare.
It is, right? Yeah. This is a reincarnation of my healthcare career. I always say that. Because I thought I was in healthcare before, but now like this is it. And that's why it is difficult. That's why I do get pushback, because my farms aren't, trimmed and manicured and like perfect, because I am transitioning so much land to regenerative organic. So there are going to be weeds, and trying to educate people on how to understand what a weed actually is. There's so many things that we eat currently today that were considered a weed that like people love now. Like, so it's all marketing. It's all like how things are going to be postured as having importance. And so that's what we're really trying to do for our food system.
Are you a fan of that quote? A weed is just a plant whose virtues are not known.
I love it.
I love it. A classic one.
And it's just truth. It's true for so many things.
And in French, it's bad plant, basically.
Mauvaise herbe, bad.
Which is kind of funny.
Plant.
It's even worse. Like, weed is at least, it doesn't necessarily have a connotation of good or bad. But
we were eating lamb quarter last night. There's so many other things. Like I tell people a lot just about the just poinsettias. And are there poinsettias here?
Yep.
Is that a thing that happens during the holiday
oh
season?
My God.
Yeah. And I was like, these are weeds in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful and people love them and like put them all over their home now, like in our state, communities. So it's just interesting. It's all perception, and it's like, whose voice does it take? What credibility is necessary in order for you to listen to what I'm saying? When I say like even at my farm currently, like I face so much like, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. Like there's all these weeds. At least she can plant some flowers, like all that. Like, can she just mow? And I'm like, y'all in this mowing culture, like I'm literally trying to transition this soil that has been mired with glyphosate for the last 30, 40 years, if not longer. And I'm transitioning it to be healed. I'm healing this soil right now so that the food that I grow in this soil is better, but also so that the air quality around this community is better and so that your water quality is better. All these things are going to be impacted, and I have to protect myself and my team that are farming this soil, and they deserve to be around clean, healthy soil as well. So it's just so much bigger than us.
Yeah, and there's so many layers.
So many layers.
The education part, the food safety part, the food, the healthiness, like just growing food that has really high nutritional quality,
density,
and then just kind of telling that in itself is just a big uphill battle.
It's so hard. Then
adding, all the cultural diversity from where food is grown and the culture around food. That's also super, that's something that we need to fight back. Like we've been in the last 60 years, I have a hard word with that, homogenized. It's hard for me to say that word. Like everything is so blended. The same as, it could be so diverse, like depending on which community you're from, which, area, region. There's so much work to do. And then we're also fighting multinational corporations that have a high stake in these, these
and
monopolies.
It remaining the same.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we tell that story that needs so desperately to be told everywhere for it to matter for everyone? It's like, it's almost like we have to homogenize the story so that it fits for every pocket, which is so interesting because it's like nobody gets to all these different zones that we have for growing. And it's like, it's different for everyone, but the reasons why we have to do it are the same.
Yeah.
Like we have to do this are the same. And so it just becomes really like you're right. I don't know what the exact answer is. Like a lot of what I do is just like put your head down and just work. Like just keep working and people will see. And one thing that Jeff Catch from Rodale's CEO said to me years ago in 2020 when him and I first met, and it was once they see, they can't unsee. And I've always loved, once they see, they can't unsee.
They can't unsee.
And I love that quote from him. And I say that all the time and quote him because it resonates with me so much. It's like, so I'm just going to continue to do this work. We're just going to continue pushing through and getting things done. But the exhausting part of that is along the way, we do have to address people's concerns for all the naysayers, like having to address them. It's just like, can't you just trust and believe that I'm doing the right thing, that we're on the right path? But it's like, no. Like, prove to me that this is right. And I'm like, unfortunately, farming is not a day. It's not quick. Like, this is a process. Like, for that piece of kale that you're glorifying that chef made it into a tortellini or whatever amazing thing he did to it, we planned that piece of kale 6 months ago.
Yeah. He gets the credit.
Yeah, but he gets
Everyone's
the credit.
Applauding. Oh, this is such a great piece.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, come on, man.
I was prepping that soil in October.
Yeah.
So that's just the interesting thing about it all.
Yeah. That plowing mentality. We were talking about that yesterday. You were saying to me at dinner that, for you, failing is just not an option.
At all.
It's not even in your mindset.
No.
It's gonna work.
It's going to work. And I just think about it all the time. Like just the culture that people are so used to in westernized communities, societies, where it's like you have to have a job. You go to school, you get a job, you work that job, and you end your life. That's it, like done. And for me, that's how I thought too. Like I got a job. I actually got a job that was in my field that I went to school for, and thought I was just going to keep chugging along. And then I got into where my true calling is, this passion. And it's like, oh, wow, I feel like me. I feel more me than I ever have felt before. And so for that to be the case, and for the mission to be so big and the stakes to be so much bigger than me, it's like, what else are you going to do, Christa? Like, this is it. And there's no bone in my body that says that failure is afoot.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to work. And I love the beauty of the pivot, and I'll always embrace that. But regardless, like, FarmerJawn works.
Yeah, it's moving forward.
Absolutely.
Like, Christa, I have to say, you're inspiring for me. Like, as somebody that's carrying such a big mission, and like, yeah, for me, like, you're very important.
Merci.
Yeah. And, I know that it comes with challenges, but I hope that a lot of people are there to support you in all the ways needed.
Yeah, in all the ways.
Yeah, in all the ways needed, because it's important.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Do you? I think there's a weird feeling I have of like, seeing how much work there is to be, or you could just say can still be done, is also so exciting. It's sort of like a sad fact because it means like how many things have gone awry. But it's so exciting to realize the room for change, like how much is actually there, like how much the city and living in the city could change for the better.
Yeah.
Is exciting because I feel like what that means is all these various people, like they don't have to just go down that path you just laid out. Like they can do something revolutionary and change everything around them. And it made me think too of something else with corner stores, because I thought too of like the ethnic element or the cultural element of how, like, I lived in New Brunswick in the past in New Jersey. And so a corner store there, it's a very Hispanic community. And a lot of times you'd get some like Hispanic kind of produce that was always there. And for that community, it was really important to be able to get that. But it wasn't going to be local just due to the circumstances of the farming around. And imagine if that was like that too.
Yeah.
If these people, there was small farms and it was people of their community, and just the amount of room for potential there. It's exciting to think of what the future really could be if it goes in a positive direction. And you're making it go that way. So
yeah, for all the Spanish speaking communities, like, I really, to be able to grow culturally relevant crops for them to be able to put into their stores. But that's how I came to the idea of FarmerJawn to begin with. I walked into a number of Spanish owned facilities or Latin-owned facilities and corner stores in my neighborhood. About 5 of them. I did a walk one day with a good friend of mine, David Rose, in Philly, and we just walked around and started asking the corner store owners if they would stock my fresh produce, and all of them said no. All 5 of them in that walk we took, and I was like, interesting, but I understood why. It's like, from a business perspective, it'll die on the shelf. Like, why would I want to stock something I know I can't sell here? Yeah. And so that's when I realized this is about the psyche of the community. It's about changing their minds about the food they should be eating, what they deserve, and, how their health is at stake. And so that's where I started to change the mindset and was like, okay, food is medicine. Like, we have to go with that as our model of how we design a new and different corner store for folks. And I think, to your point, like, once we can get the model to work, because I don't even think that we're doing something that nobody else has done, but I am doing it differently. Yeah. So, like, each of our corner Jawns has an adjacent growing space with it. So the first one is a 3,000 square foot corner growing space, and the actual corner store itself is 1,200 square feet. That has a 300 square foot kitchen inside of it. Okay. And it has seating. So it's a little bit different than your traditional corner store, which are normally like 600 square feet total. But when you first walk into the front of it, it looks like a traditional corner store. But there's like a secret passageway that you can keep going. And then you get to this like beautiful oasis outdoor growing space. It also has some seating in it. So it helps people connect, like food and farming go together. And so each corner store that I build is going to be that, where regardless of the size and dimensions, but each one will definitely have its own growing space next to it. And it doesn't mean that growing space is where all the food's coming from. It's not about that. It's about the optics. Yeah. Like our farm will be stocking the most of it, right? The food will be coming. But that is meant to be a space where you can see crops growing. There's signs that say kale, lettuce, whatever. And people are like, oh, wow. So this is what a tomato plant looks like? Like, nobody knows any of this stuff. Yeah. Like, there's no identifying leaves in the hood. Like nobody knows how to do that. And so like that's what we're teaching. That's where you're going to be able to know what a bean plant looks like, all of that stuff. Yeah. Right? Because you just should.
What are some success stories that stand out for you in terms of like you really, I don't know, someone that's come to passing through any of your work that's become really inspired? Are there any things that really move you, things you've seen where you're like, man, like because you inspired someone or taught them something and it changed their course? Do you have any stick out stories?
Oh, so many. I mean, I'll name two. There's one person that came through my program, actually, the Agripreneur Academy, that has been with me since. That's just stuck with me and is really focusing on how they can create their own herbalism business by growing their own herbs. And I provided them growing space and all of that. So they're just with me, like fine tuning their business plans for when they're ready to launch. But at the same time, working with me as the outreach coordinator for the brand. So like, it's really nice to have her. Melissa is her name, and she's really just been tapped in. She started with me as a volunteer, then came into the academy, and then joined the team, and then the whole way I'm just helping her build her brand from scratch, literally having no experience, being from Brooklyn, New York, moving to Philadelphia, and then just like seeing her business come to life. And that's what to me, when agriculture is the culture, is about taking people's existing passions and helping them find a way to integrate agriculture with them. And it goes back to like agriculture touches everything that you do. I know there's a way to integrate it into whatever you currently love, and help bridge that gap. And so that's one. And then another one is we do a lot of work with returning citizens in Philadelphia area through in collaboration with a program called Power Core through AmeriCorps. And the trust program specifically is about people who are rehabilitating their lives, who made some poor decisions in their past and are working to work through a workforce development program to be better. So we've trained, I mean, at least 100 since for the last 2 years that we've been doing it, at least 100 people to understand agriculture through that program. And they come to us once a week for 4 hours. And it's just amazing to see all of them take something that, again, that has stigmatized their ancestors and traumatized them, like being outside, working in the heat, like all that stuff that are just like seems negative, but helping them change that and look at it as something that's more empowering for them. Like, wow, I know how to grow my own food. Yeah, and I can take care of my family. So if something does happen, for all the preppers out there, you know how to grow food.
I can grow my business.
It's powerful.
It's my own business.
It's powerful. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's one thing about farming. It's like you can really do it. You can open up a plot, buy some seeds, grow stuff, and sell it. It doesn't need to be. You don't need to import something from somewhere. Right. You can just do it.
Yeah. I mean, the access to land is a piece, too.
It is a piece.
Yeah, it is a piece. But like you said, like the community garden culture, like I want to see change in so many ways because I love it. I love the idea of having green spaces in our cities, in our communities. But the fact that these community gardens could be so much more impactful if they were... if they had the education piece on how to be a business owner, you know, or just how we can feed more people. Because, you have a plot of, maybe like 3,000 square feet that has like 50 boxes on it. And then that's 50 households in a community where there's 100,000 people. So it's like, how many people are we actually impacting here with the current community garden culture? Let's make this more... Let's really open this up. How about each community garden becomes a business? And how about each city or municipality is paying for a farmer to actually tend these areas? And I just have so many ideas when it comes to what we could do with that. So we can actually feed people, teach people how to really rebuild the farm economy is what we're doing. And like make it so that everybody understands that, I know my farmer. They live down the street. They live 3 doors down or like 2 blocks over, that kind of thing. But that's not where we are, but that's where we're going to get to. Yeah,
I like that you talk about the local economy and the economy. I think it's so that. Yeah. Like for anyone that kind of gets it from a big picture, it's really what it is. We talk about here how the economy has changed because of all the local farms. But that's what it is. And it creates culture in the same time. So they work together, Yeah. But one needs to work. You can't have the culture without the economy otherwise.
That brings us back to business. I wanted to touch a bit deeper into that because something I've heard you say was like, you're trying to also get people out of the mindset that all they can do is garden, meaning like they can farm.
Yeah.
Like it's not just, they don't just have to garden. Like this is actually a viable career path.
Yeah.
And it connects to the idea of ownership, like actually owning farms and how, like you said, in the early 1900s, it was how many? Like black-owned farms? Yeah. And then now the number is way, way less.
Yeah.
And just that empowerment aspect of, you're not just teaching people to garden.
$1 million, was that black-owned farm?
Yeah, land.
Wow.
Like they were landowners.
Everywhere? In
all
the
over I would say primarily in the South for sure. But like that was it. And then even some in the North, like even Pennsylvania, there's 400 acres that's still owned by the same black family to this day. That's up there. And they're actually the largest black owned farm in the whole state. And they also own the land. So like that's the thing that has changed drastically. That 30,000 farmers that I'm talking about are not even landowners.
But they're just
farm
owning the
businesses. Yeah. So it's like even more crazy.
Yeah.
From the loss perspective.
Do you see an issue? Not an issue, but a resolved, or is it land revolution? Like what's the end game of that?
To me, what's currently in place that is seemingly going to like the direction of what the resolve is the land trust that exists. But I don't believe that they're the answer. I don't, because then what that does is that these trusts are created and then they just own the land. And then who's behind the land trust? What money is behind the land trust is still usually not black money. So, you know what I mean? So even though when you have a trust, it's like nobody owns it per se, but it's still controlled, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is to that. Like I'm still working on an idea right now that has something to do with homesteading. And that's really just getting more people comfortable coming in, like you said, like coming into the city to do business or to work, but you actually your home is out here where you can own a bunch of land for a lot less. I was looking at a farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, about an hour from Philly, and it was $300,000 for 14 acres and a home. And I was like, this is amazing. Yeah. And it was in Lancaster County, which is mostly Amish culture there.
It's beautiful country.
It's gorgeous. Just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, a lot of spray everywhere. Everybody's spraying. But other than that, it's just like, this is dope. A really dope place.
Yeah.
And that's where I want people to start looking like at opportunities like that.
How far a drive is that?
About 45 minutes.
That's...
Yeah, get to come right into the city. But if you want to be a farmer or if you just want peace, but if you want to have a homestead and you want to be able to sell, there's so many opportunities to sell. There's auctions everywhere, like farm auctions are everywhere. Like the farm economy exists already out there.
But it needs new blood.
It needs new blood. It can't be fearful. Because I will tell you that auctions, the farm auctions, which I'm sure you've been to, do they have farm auctions here?
Yeah, but I've never been to one.
Okay, they are intimidating for me. And I go and I do the thing. Like when I wanted to go get flowers before, like hanging baskets to open the store, I went there and I just was like, I'll take all of them. Like you put your bid up and then they were like, how many you want? I was like, all of them. And then people will look at you like, who is this? Buying everything.
Was it intimidating because it goes fast?
It's intimidating because I'm the only black person there.
Okay.
And it's a lot of these are many generation farmers, and I feel like they all have their own kind of lingo amongst the culture, and it's like if you're not from that, you feel like you're coming from outside, and it's a super.
Well, they're reselling to their own gang.
Yeah, that's how it is, and it's not a terrible thing to be honest.
How it is. Yeah.
Like imagine us having our own economy like that, where everybody comes to market, so to speak, right? And you need this, you need this, you need this, and I need this, I need this. So we're all just getting what we need from each other. Like, oh my God, that's a village. That's what we want.
Yeah. Is that a 4 or 5 dent broad fork?
Yeah, right. Like love. Like especially as new farmers are coming up. Like thinking about all the farm equipment that I currently have that I like don't need. This was my first version of this. Now I have this. So like this is perfect for you. Yeah. That kind of thing. So I mean, I'd love for us to create something similar, but it's a process. It's a process, but it also is just getting back to basics. Yeah. We overcomplicate everything. And I'd love to see us really just re-simplify our lives.
I wanted one more touch point on business too, because you have this program called agripreneurship. So clearly teaching people about business is a big piece of this, which is also important because you're not just teaching them to garden, you're teaching them business.
Yeah.
And I think I've heard you say somewhere, I don't remember where, but you talked about also teaching some things like generational wealth, like how you, because a lot of these people, they don't have generational wealth.
Right.
So they're starting basically from scratch, but they can start, this generation at least can start that for then the coming generations. How does that fit into how you see what you're doing, like whether or not it's about, because if also like housing and land access is going to become in any way better in the future, I guess part of that is going to be more people becoming capable of buying it, or I don't really know what the answers there are.
I have a different approach to this.
Yeah.
And it's not like how most farmers, like where you have to own land. Like I don't believe that I have to own land and have a successful business. That's not it. I believe that me having a successful business will lead to me owning land.
Yeah.
And doing it that way, loading it in that direction, backloading it, if you will, is much better than trying to front load land. Because I would have never had the success or the trajectory that I've had if I tried to just go get land first, right?
Yeah.
And it's too much of a barrier for me. Like, the whole how credit works in America, like it's just not, it wouldn't even been possible.
This podcast is proudly supported by Tessier Greenhouses. Tessier has always been one of my top choices for greenhouses and tunnels. For over 45 years, they've been manufacturing high quality and incredibly strong structures right here in North America. Their products can withstand the heavy snow loads we faced here in the Northeast, and their prices are among the best in the market. Tessier offers excellent service and expertise, always ready to help with customized solutions. I particularly appreciate their commitment to innovation and their willingness to listen to the needs of growers. At the Old Mill, we use several of their Gothic Caterpillar tunnels and micro tunnel for season extension, and I'm always impressed with their design and build quality. Without companies like Tessier, food sovereignty just wouldn't be possible. So thank you, Tessier, for helping us growers feed our community year-round. You guys rock.
Use promo code MGI10 for 10% off your first order and free shipping in select regions.
This episode is brought to you by New Society Publishing. For over 40 years, New Society has been at the forefront of publishing books that inspire positive change all over the world. Farming isn't just about hard work, it's also about knowledge, and it's also about stories. And that's where New Society comes in. They published my first book, The Market Gardener, which has brought thousands of people to the world of small-scale farming. And I can tell you, friends, New Society is more than a publisher. They are a driving force in the movement toward a better and greener future. Hop over to newsociety.com, check out their books, and use the promo code SmallFarm25 to get 25% off on all of their books. It's a sweet deal, friends. New Society Publishers, cultivating change one page at a time. I love this. Now let's get back to our program.
And so I believe in starting with the business part, which is why I'm so blessed to have the business acumen. And I came at it from like, okay, Christa, you need a value-added product. I didn't even know what value-added was yet. But I was like, I think I'm going to start a tea company. Like that's where really when I came back from Martinique. And one of my experiences while I was on that island was also with a Thai chef who made me cups of tea using herbs that I watched him pick from his garden. And he put them in my mug and poured hot water over them. And then I was like, I love this. I've never had tea in this way. And that is how I built my first company, which is Viva Leaf Tea Company. And that's how I got enough money to be able to even fathom FarmerJawn being a reality.
Does the company still exist?
It does. I took a year and a half off.
Have I seen that label in the past?
It was in DeBruno Brothers. Okay. So it was in like
familiar,
a specialty grocery store in the Philadelphia region.
Okay.
Probably like the most special as far as like specialty products, if you will. And they have 5 stores, and that's where my products were first sold. And so I believe, and how I teach each of the pupils that come through our program is that, tell me, if you want to be a traditional farmer, if you want to be a farmer, then you have to have a value-added product. Otherwise, you're just going to spin your wheels. And it's not that it's impossible. Like you can grow something really cool, but even people that grow things that are just a thing, they still have to have great marketing, which still becomes a product, which still becomes value add. Thinking about the company that's based in Jersey that grows these really interesting strawberries, the Oishi strawberries. Are you familiar with them?
No, it's South Jersey.
I don't know. I think they're actually New York. Isn't that North Jersey? Yeah, there's this like special strawberry that they grow hydroponically, and what they do is it's like $50 for 8 strawberries.
Ooh la la.
And it's how they package it. It's literally like, oh yeah, you gotta look them up. But it's a Japanese style or something.
Okay.
But they're in Jersey, and they sell these 8 strawberries for $50, and chefs everywhere was wanting them for like crazy for a while.
Yeah, marketing, right?
It's the marketing,
Branding.
and so that's where I teach. That's why I teach people. I'm like, let's get you. What is your story? Who are you? Let's integrate that into your what you're selling, why you want to sell this, and then let's create a product for it. So I started with a tea company because the story made sense, and it's true. I love tea, and then I had this experience with this Thai chef in Martinique who was married to a Frenchman. It all just it was perfect, and then right after I met them, I met the Black farmer. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start a tea company first, and then I'm going to start a farm. And that's pretty much what I did. And the tea company, I started with herbs that I began growing in my own backyard, in a concrete backyard, by the way, in a little 4x6 foot hobby greenhouse that I figured out how to rig with heat and water. And then I bought herbs from a farm that was 10 minutes away from me that I didn't know existed until I came back from Martinique.
Yeah. Once you became aware.
Right. I was like, oh, wow, there's a farm right here. And so I just started, getting their herbs and blending herbs, wellness blends. I had like spicy cold and flu. So yeah, I took a year and a half off from actually producing the tea so that I could build my kitchens. And now that our kitchens are built, now we can, the plan is to start the tea company back up again in time for fall. Fall is right here. So we're ready to go for winter tea products. But I believe in helping people develop their own value-added brand to be able to support the operations of the farm. So as they're figuring things out on the farm, they at least have some revenue that's still coming in. And I'm really blessed to have the connections and the resources to be able to take somebody's product that I believe in and help them shelve it.
Yep.
Like I feel confident that I can get them on pretty much any shelf.
Do you have other value-added products currently?
No. So our next one that we're rolling out with is a stock, and that's to help mitigate the food waste on our farm. Like obviously we do a lot of composting, but we also have some stuff that are like, we can't sell it on the floor. I would hate to give that to a CSA member. But it's like, not compost ready either. So it's that middle. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect to be, something else. Like if it doesn't end up on a sandwich, then it can be, a part of our veggie stock. But that's the next line of products.
Veggie stock.
Yeah. So the next line of products I'm coming out with are veggie stocks. There will be 3 of them, and they'll all have their own distinct flavors.
How about compost?
Compost, like actually selling it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have 123 acres. There's like a lot of compost on my farm right now, like a ton. And managing that is a whole different.
Okay.
I want to stay in the food space.
The food space. Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess these products, they're going to kind of come together with FarmerJawn, I imagine.
They will, yeah. So like
at
at each of our distribution, like we have our own retail now with the store that's on the larger farm. As we continue to create these smaller locations throughout the city and in other cities and other metros, we'll obviously continue to put our products everywhere as well and get them in other people's. Yeah, I just, I go back and forth with it because like there's I remember talking to a grocer, like somebody who does it on a higher level, and they were saying like conventional. And this word conventional is just like,
right.
I hate it.
Like, why does everything have a conventional in it? Like,
just like natural wine. It's just wine.
It's just like, I'm confused. And so he would be like, oh yeah, so do you want to sell this conventionally? And I'm like, what does that mean? And he was like, nationally, like everywhere. And I'm like how I want to do products is that I want to create them, and I don't want them to go more than 300 miles away from the origin.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's how I would like to see it done. Yeah, that's the limit.
Yep.
And there's so many, 300 miles is a lot.
It's a lot.
There's a lot of people in there. There is just, it's enough.
Yep.
It's enough. And that's where I want people to start getting their minds. When we're talking about these words that are so buzzy, like sustainability and regenerative, it's like, what do we really believe that? And like our business needs to show that we're not just in how we're farming, but our practices of business also have to be those things as well.
They need to be local.
Yeah.
They need to be organic in the way. I think it's good, Christa, to put a constraint because otherwise the constraint is what my farm is built off. Mm-hmm. Constraint is really important because it narrows down what we're actually doing and what we're not doing. And, if the corner stores become a success and then many opens, what's the end game? It's always good to have somewhat of the
framework.
The framework.
Yeah. Yeah, and I understand it. And so to your question, like big picture, like
Yeah.
what do you want? What is FarmerJawn?
Yeah.
FarmerJawn is going to be multi-site. It will definitely have more than one. And we're going to focus on metropolitans that are suffering and dealing with this issue of gentrification, that are also dealing with issues of health disparity. Because I want to be able to see the change. I want to be able to measure the change in the areas that we're in. And I want to also, like what we are currently, 128 acres, one of the largest Black-owned farms in America that grows food specifically, that is not just going to be in Pennsylvania. That's just where we are right now. But the goal is to continue to expand our mindset and how we do things to other people's farms and collaborate with farmers that need help. I meet so many farmers who come to me, Black farmers specifically, and say like, hey, I have family land. We don't know what to do with it. Please help. And so I see that is how my mission can continue to push forward, is that I can help to train the people that do want to farm, that already have the land, and help them create something out of what now has been nothing for so long, that creates generational wealth for their families, but also adds to what I'm building with FarmerJawn. So now, like in Chicago, if somebody has a farm there that they want to rehabilitate and I can help them do that, now I have a farm where I can put a FarmerJawn in Chicago, where now we can create another product line where those products, and they can be the same ones, because the system, I have the system, I understand how to make it work. So now these products are now offered in Chicago.
Speaking your language.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. No, it's true. Like, because it's, that's what we need. We need to have the support cast. Farmers, they need the support cast.
Yeah.
Like, this is what you're talking about. Building stores for them.
Right.
If farmers market didn't exist the last 40 years, the organic movement would have been dead.
Oh yeah,
It would have been kaput. So people took on them to build these farmers market, to organize them, to sustain them, to make them interesting for customers. And now farmers market, I think we're beyond that, like stores, real stores.
And food hubs. Like
Food
we
hubs,
talk a
real
lot about
stores.
online sales lately, because it's a new burgeoning possibility for small farms. Like that used to be the big companies could only do that, but now anyone.
Yeah, eventually meats, like that's a bigger project,
Yeah.
but like fresh local meat, like humane meat, that's a big
Even
thing.
fish. The
Fish,
fisheries.
oh my God.
Oh yeah, like all the fisheries. I've been coming and talking to a lot of them. We have one in Philly called Fishadelphia, who's doing amazing work there, and like I'm really excited to see how they have a fish CSA. Like, and I'm like, come be a pickup at my farm. Like, they were talking to me about like having my farm be a pickup location for them. And I'm like, that's perfect, because I don't sell meat or fish. And so that would be amazing.
It's also what the customer, like we, as a consumer of local foods,
Yes.
it's like the never ending, like final problem that remains is like that inconvenience fact that sometimes it's just hard to get everything. You're like, I want to make this meal, but it's like 4 different places. And
Right.
the more that we can organize as communities to somehow make that, like, I'm just like, if I can go to your farm and get my vegetables and my fish.
It's goes back to what I say about making farming convenient. Like, we have to, in the society that we live in, where people are just like, we live in a microwave community. Like, everybody wants what they want right now.
We live in a microwave community. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, it's like now, right? And so, everybody's not checking for going to 5 different places on a Sunday to go get their stuff, to do their shopping.
Yeah.
So you're right. Like, as much as we can make farming convenient, the better.
Nice.
Especially to change the minds and habits of people that have lived totally separate from it. It's, there's a lot of people that are already so gung-ho and invested.
Right.
And especially if they're people that they have some disposable income, like it's just going to be, that's why they're often the ones that are buying a lot of the produce. And that's something that people talk about a lot.
Yeah.
But it's like, if we're going to make change, then that has to change. So.
It has to change. Yeah, even the availability of the, like I said, those SNAP benefits, the benefits there, I know it's different in everywhere. It's called something different, but
they had it. I mean, we were doing it in Jersey. We're trying to like offer the SNAP.
like having some
it.
food stamps. That's just the name I feel like everybody knows it by, but that is important. So that inclusivity, one thing that's so important to me is that people that come to shop with us, I don't want anybody to know who you are, how much money you have. Like, to me, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And this is a place, like, definitely where it's about equity and inclusion on every level. So when you walk in here, regardless of how you pay, you're all walking out with the same exact food. And that's
so
what it's all
important too.
about.
I wanted to talk about stories because I've heard you say before that CSA boxes are tools for telling stories.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, just think about all the different foods that are in those boxes. Seeds. And like they were all seeds first. And seeds are really what has the stories. And just thinking about who planted that seed, why it was planted, the origin of that seed, it becomes really beautiful just to think about. And even beyond that, I think about the transatlantic slave trade as, you know, African people were being brought over to America or, you know, surrounding to be exploited. You know, black bodies were exploited for the benefit of building the Industrial Revolution. That's just really what happened, especially in agriculture. So I really look at it as a way to connect how seeds even got here. And the fact that black women were braiding seeds into other black women's hair so that they can have food that was culturally relevant to them here in America. So, like, think about how we got collard greens over here and how we got okra. You know, those are some of the seeds that were planted, that they were braided into the hair of black women that were on those ships.
Wow.
And so, yes, you know, stories, when I think about storytelling of food, it starts with seeds for me in the origin. That's why I love companies. There's a company in Philly that's called True Love, good friends of mine, that started a seed company, and they tell stories. And Sister Seeds, another young lady named Amira, who started her own seed company. And it's just on the back of every single packet, it's telling the story about the seed, the origin of it, the farmer who grew it, like all of that is just so important to me. And that's where, again, it goes back to agriculture as a culture, people knowing who their farmer is and not just consuming something without understanding the story, but more so interacting with their food. That's how you interact with your food system, is that you know it versus just consuming it simply.
What do you think about, do you think a lot about kind of the cultural image or representation that you're putting out there and like how that will affect change? Because just like we said before, how people, you know, in order for people to change gears and do something different, they have to see themselves in it, or at least a lot of people do. And I think so many of us, even like Jam and I both kind of grew up in suburbs. And for us, it was, we had to see, like you went to installed in New Mexico and I saw that this random farm I happened upon. And do you think much about that in terms of too, like you kind of the messaging that you put out as FarmerJawn?
Yeah, the image.
And the image, like where does that fit into your thinking and your strategizing and your mission?
It's definitely the see it, be it. It's important for me to hit these accolades, right? Like some people are just like, been doing this work way longer than me, but has really just had their head down just doing the things and impacting the people they impact without amplifying their voice. And that to me is so important. Visibility is so key to me, because if we're going to actually see change and see the pendulum really swing, I have to be visible so people can see and know who I am. So that's why the accolades they matter. That's why winning the awards matter. That's why becoming certified organic matters. That's why becoming certified regenerative organic matters. All that stuff, because there's a ton of farms that are just practicing, right? But I want the certification so no one can say like, oh, you can't say organic. That's a legal term. You can't, all that stuff matters. And so that other people that look like me can be like, wow, like we can have control of our own food system. And like, oh, I didn't understand that slavery was about controlling food as well. Like it literally was about changing the face of humanity, because that's when you control people's food, you control them. And that's the power that they didn't recognize they had as they were farming. So I am really giving people their voice back and reminding them who they are, but also reminding all of us that we should be eating clean food, and we should care about our planet first and foremost, making sure that our soil is healthy, making sure our waterways are healthy, our air quality is superb, and then making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. All those things have to be intact in order for us to even say that we're well. And so once that takes place, then we can actually do the things that matter, which is, grow clean, healthy food. So the people that come after us know and understand that. One thing I tell people a lot when it comes to like the health aspect of how I grow and why I grow the way I do is that when we think about hereditary disease and all the issues, like, the USDA and talks a lot about, and Health and Human Services, about diet-related disease and high blood pressure, diabetes, even heart disease. All these things are diet-related, all of it. And how do we improve that? And think about what's hereditary. Like years ago, Europe, Black people or Asian people or white people, they're more predisposed to certain things, certain diseases. But how did that happen? It's because of the way that each, people were eating. Over the years, it starts to get worse. And it's like, high blood pressure runs in my family. Diabetes runs in my family. But, like, how do we get there? So we actually have the power. It's like letting people know that right now, in this very moment, you have the power to change what your family's health issues are 2-3 generations from now. But you got to start now. You got to do better right now. And you can't do better unless you know better.
You got to plant the tree now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we are the change we want to see. Like, we really are.
It speaks a lot to something that, do you know Dave Chapman, Real Organic Project?
No.
Do you know that project? No. He was on the podcast, and he got this from a woman named Zephyr Teachout, who has a book called Break 'em Up, about like breaking up monopolies in food, about the food system. But he made a point about visibility and about speaking up, and it had to do with, like, she related just the style of advocacy or activism that, like, Martin Luther King did versus, and her example was with Henry David Thoreau. And that Thoreau was just totally silent, just like it was like a silent civil disobedience, and he wasn't speaking out. And that's what a lot of farmers do. Like, they just do their thing. That's great. But if you never had then the other style, which is to really speak up, and he made the point too about, especially like in the whole civil rights movement, like it was that much more important to speak up, because you couldn't necessarily affect that change by just doing the silent thing.
Yeah. You need both.
And yeah, exactly. But his, like, speaking about that in that way, it just made me think so much about that power of visibility.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great that you've, I guess, picked up on that, like, in yourself, that you've noticed, like, getting that award isn't an opportunity to speak.
Yeah.
It's more than just, it can be more than just it's more than just being given an honor. It's also an ability to move your mission further, right? I guess.
And it's uniting. Because that's the other thing, is that you'll have people that look like me. Yeah, they're like, oh, great, that this is amazing. We love you. Thank you so much for being the representation of us. But then you have people that don't look like me, white men even, that'll come and be like, yeah, this is great. She's on the right track. And so I'm just thinking about the positive folks, right? So, like, and it unites it. It's like, oh, wow, there's white men coming and supporting this Black woman. And it just reminds us that this is about humanity. This is really what this is about. And it allows us to not just focus on all the things that divide us, but food is the ultimate unifier. Yeah. And so I'm really happy to be that.
Yeah, and you're right, because you talked about controlling the food, controlling the people, and food is the great unifier, but it's also the great controller. And we're with Dave Chapman, we were talking about picking a fight with the current food system that's highly monetized and highly capitalized, and it's like there's a lot of money in the food system, like a lot. It's like war, and that's probably number 2. And I think it's up to reclaim it. Like, we need to reclaim it. Like, there's an opportunity to grow better food, to sell better food, to eat better food. And, like, food is making us sick.
Oh, yes.
Like, especially in the U.S., especially in impoverished communities, like in cities. It's like, I travel around the world, and it's the worst. It's there. It's pretty crazy. Like, the richest country in the world has probably the worst food system in many ways.
But it's also why it's rich. I was at Organic Week in DC, and really great event. And Secretary Vilsack was there, Secretary of Agriculture for the U.S. And he came and he gave this really just stoic statistic, and he was like 93% of farms are small in America, out of, and there's 7% of the farms that are actually growing the majority of the food for the entire nation, and those farms are corporately funded. And I just was like, wow.
Yeah.
And then I just, like, small farmers are going to have the power to change the world.
Yeah.
If we just believe in ourselves and believe that we can do it. Because what if we stop eating the 7% of the food that's grown and it's, you know what I mean, that's ladled with chemicals and like it's prettier, right? Like, but we can grow really pretty produce. It's just about people understanding it. But like, you know, with no holes in it. And I always tell people like my collard greens have bites in them and those are the ones I want to eat.
Yep.
I don't want to eat collard greens that are perfect because if bugs don't eat them, then I don't want it either. But it's different. It's just a complete mind change for people, helping them to understand, you know, what good food really is. Like, what is the definition of good food, right?
Mm. Yeah, and like Dave Chapman also said that he doesn't really want to even use the term big ag anymore. He just says big food because those two systems, food, distribution, and they co-evolve together.
Yeah.
And so our agriculture has been based upon the way in which it's distributed and the businesses that have formed out of that.
Yeah,
and
even if you see, you look at all the corn everywhere, you're like, why? Where's this corn going? Why is everyone growing corn? Like everyone is growing corn.
Yes.
Like why?
It's definitely to do with the meat industry. I was at that same conference. I had a quick. This was offline, but we had like a little back and forth with this guy when I was talking to him about nutrient density and like why it's important to go organic and why all of the things. And I was like, nutrient density matters. And he was like, the studies have shown that nutrient density is not impacted by, you know, chemicals and it doesn't matter and it's fine. It's like, and if we're going to they kept saying, like, if we're going to feed 8 billion people in this world, we have to use chemicals. We have to get higher yields.
Yeah.
And I just was like,
that's bullshit.
How did you think we were feeding people before? And yes, there were less of us, but like, no, like we can absolutely do this. And the terms regenerative organic really just mean indigenous. Like there are ways of growing that we're just getting back to the way the things were already being done. And just all we've done is made it more efficient. Made the processes more efficient. That's it. But we're really just getting back to basics and simpler. Just
reintroducing ourselves.
Yeah.
Going back home. I love all the parallels.
Yeah,
we sometimes say, you know, replacing mass production with production by the mass.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love that one.
Yeah, you can use that.
Yeah.
It's free. It's copy left. But it's true because that's exactly what we need to do. And it's not going backward. And that's what part of, you know, my work, our work, is just like putting a positive spin to all of that. It's like having a farming lifestyle is a good lifestyle. If you know what you're doing and if you can get through some of the first hurdles and the obstacles, man, it's a cool lifestyle. And if you have marketing and sale opportunities, which is a big thing.
It's big.
Man, you're on your way because you can be self-determining and you can grow stuff and sell it and improve and it's fun and
and just thinking about the land access piece, how much land do you even need to grow enough food for certain people? Like I always talk about that with people because as I was transitioning, like my first year on this 120 acre property was last year, and being in this new year, this is being our second season there, and you know, the first year had to be transitional. It had to be. I needed to understand the soil. I needed to understand the land, all of that. So I only grew on 2 acres and I had all this food. My CSA was being fed from it. We still had our 1 acre over in our other farm. And so but the other of it, I'm letting it grow. I'm just letting it grow crazy. As tall as it wanted to, I just let it go. And the neighbors went nuts. They just went nuts. And they're like, she's not doing anything. You can't be growing. And I'm like, yeah, there's 2 acres right over here. All this food is in here. And and what I did, I let all my pathways also grow super tall.
Nice.
Because my deer pressure was insane. And so I was like, okay, deer, I got y'all. I'm going to let my walkways grow super tall and then we'll just harvest in between. Like, you know, we kept I pretty much was just straddling my my actual beds to harvest. And that's what me and my team was doing. And it worked extremely well. The moisture retention was amazing. But doing it in that way, working with nature instead of against it, people were like, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. Like, where's the food? She's not growing any food. And I just was like, wow, I'm working with the earth. Me and the earth are working. We buds right now.
And those are like neighbors and stuff? You know?
Oh, yeah.
And because they come out of the mindset of like conventional ag, right? And just seeing it that way, it's like...
Everything needs to be mowed.
And it's not a field of corn. It must be nothing.
It must be nothing. Yeah. And them not even understanding that that's not even the corn that they love so much. Like,
exactly.
That's field corn, not sweet corn.
Yeah.
And it's GMO
And
and,
it's
it
GMO.
has glyphosate. So
Yeah.
So all of that. But
Before rapid fire questions, which are soon, I wanted to also touch on social media, actually, because, well, for one, I feel like you have a good presence on there and you're using it effectively. But also, you said before about divisions in society, and we all know that like social media is kind of fueling fires in terms of people being so against one another. How do you see your use of social media and the use of that to spread this message, to spread your mission, to bring urban or people and people from underserved communities towards farming again? Like, where does social media fit in?
yeah, social media is definitely a gift and a curse, but it's also the gift of it was that I just was doing naturally what I wanted to, like just being on it, and it just blew up to what it became, just me doing what I was doing. The curse of it is that people can say whatever they want on it. And so that then it's like, I am a person, like I said, who cares about what people think and say. And it like, it gets to me, to my core. And so there are times where I have to walk away. I have to step back from social media.
Sure.
Yeah. And I hate that, the fact of how positive it is. There's far more people who are like so positive and supportive and just want to learn that are coming to my page. So I do focus a lot of my energy on them and like, taking pictures that I know that they'll appreciate and that they'll like, and like being in the know of like what's going on with FarmerJawn and what we're doing, why we're doing it, all of that. Yeah. And so it's a communication tool. It really is. And just allowing us to interact with folks as well. I love that we can go back and forth with folks in a positive way too, that people can send us messages. And it's just a way to stay in touch with the community when we are, like in the height of our season. We're busy. Like it's not always a lot of time to interface with people face to face, but social media allows us to feel connected with folks too.
What do you think about how it can be used as a tool to influence younger, like kids, like towards what you're doing? Like I'm imagining being a city boy. I have the culture around me steering me one way, or I could be steered this way. Like, do you think about that? Definitely.
TikTok. Yeah, TikTok is definitely one of the things that I feel like all the younger generation, what is that, Generation Y? I don't know, I lost track.
Or Gen Z.
But that's what Generation Z, that's what they love. They love being able to interact with people and see people from all over the world. Like, just think I'm thinking about when I was growing up in the 90s, like you knew the people in your neighborhood and the people you went to school with, and that's pretty much it. I think pen pals was a thing. Like I was intrigued about like having pen pals places. I liked that. I was a Girl Scout as well, so it was like cool to meet different people from Girl Scouting. But yeah, social media and like TikTok and all these they make it so different where it's just like easily accessible. I want to talk to somebody in China, I can do it immediately. You know what I mean? And so there's a great opportunity to learn in that regard. Yeah. And I love that I get to impact people in Africa. Like I get people that reach out to me from Germany that say like, oh my God, I love your work. Is there any way that I can be supportive or connected? And so then the entrepreneurial mind that I have is like, oh God, like how do I impact China or like Africa?
Und John.
I'm going to Bali. Like, yeah. So, but like, all of that is, I just think about, I love the fact that what we are doing is not just relevant in my own neck of the woods, that everywhere we are, the whole world needs this. And so I think that's really beautiful.
Are you on TikTok?
Just to be able to inspire, barely.
Mostly Instagram.
Mostly Instagram and Facebook. Okay. Yeah, I want to get in this. I have a TikTok. I've posted once, so like the goal is to like get in it. TikTok is a little different because it's a little more trendier, where it's not like just posting a picture and talking about what you're doing. It's more like doing something cute and fun. And like I have a 16-year-old daughter, so I probably have to enlist her help to do the thing. More about it than
you know, Christa, about the comment part, like you'll get 50 beautiful, well-written comment that says that your message resonates, and you'll get one nasty one, and you'll remember the nasty one.
I know, I hate that.
I hate that too.
I don't know any other way around that except to not read the comments.
And I don't now. Like I can't, because my heart like literally cannot take it. I am so sensitive.
I'm similar. We make videos together. Yeah. I'm like editing and filming it, but you're the one talking. But when there's a negative comment, like I'm taking it to me. But sometimes it's, they're like, oh, JM said this, I don't agree, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But like I take it personally.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. So yeah, I'm done with comments myself.
Good, post and ghost.
But I will say that your followers, the people that love you, they come for those people in the comments though, which is nice. So it's like, okay, they got me. Somebody got me covered.
Yeah, so that's cool when they do that.
It is.
It's really cool. It's
Yeah,
really cool when
let your army fight for you.
Right.
Let your army fight for you.
Yeah.
And that's important because, man, it really, really is hard to read these comments sometimes, especially when it's full of nonsense. Like, whoa.
Right. It's like, damn, you really don't understand me.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, the people who get you. And everybody is not for you. Like, there's one thing I used to say to raising my kids, like, everybody can't go. Everybody's not meant to go. So like you may have people who you love, who are friends that you grew up with, all the things. But like as your life starts to take a positive trajectory, there are just some people in your life that know that can't go. So everybody can't go. You're not for everybody. Everybody's not for you. Simple.
Yep.
So
good wisdom.
Yeah. It's true. Like the energy, it's reciprocity. Like if you're going in the light, you'll attract like-minded people, and others will just kind of fade out.
Shall we do rapid fire questions?
Let's do it.
Do my best here.
Well, I don't even know why I call it rapid fire. They're not very rapid, and we usually take like 20 minutes to go. So there's no need for. They're just questions.
Yeah.
But I guess they're random as opposed to conversational. But what's a book you've read many times?
Ooh.
If any.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I was gonna say Bridge to Terabithia. Such a great book. Have you ever read that?
No.
Okay, so this is a book
it?
I've read when I was young. I want to say like 5th grade. It's just such a really, really great book about friendship and about tragedy and triumph. And it's about 3 friends that are traveling together, and one of them ends up dying. But then there's just so much beauty in the story of just like being able to truly find out who you are even in a tragedy. Like being rebirthed, if you will. And like when things that don't go your way, how you respond to it is really what matters and can make or break who you are, or who you're helping you realize who you're actually meant to be is going to be based on how you respond to a situation. So I read that in 5th grade, and I read it
I know that
times.
title. What's the general? I mean, you just said, but like, is there is it fantasy or is it real? Like,
I think it's more like a fantasy. It's like Fern Gully. It's like a fantasy book.
Like,
that's one of them. And then I love English literature, and my favorite author is Oscar Wilde.
Okay.
Like love him, and I think that it's just interesting. This this white man from centuries ago.
You love to hear his words.
Him and I have so many similarities. Like we're so similar in so many ways. How he was in plain sight and still unseen. And I just felt like that forever. I've always felt like that. Like people never actually got a chance to know who I am when I was younger. And I feel like I'm finding my voice a lot more. Like I'm just getting to be who I am, and it's unapologetically Christa. Whereas I was very timid with that. I didn't allow people to know all the things, the nuances of who I was, and I was trying to assimilate versus just be myself. So yeah, I would say a lot of Oscar Wilde's books are great, and one that is a fave of mine is oh goodness, what is it? The name of it is going to escape me now, but it's the Picture of Dorian Gray.
Okay.
Which is a really, really good one as well. You should read it.
Nice.
I'm convinced. I'm gonna.
Me too.
I mean, I know Oscar Wilde. Like I don't think I've read anything though.
And he says one of his famous quotes is like, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." Yeah, and like beautiful. Oscar was queer, and he was living in that time where none of that was accepted, and he was just minding his business, writing his books, and like being able to express himself through literature. And I feel like I get to express myself through agriculture and like put my imprint on the world in that way, and so I love that.
Very cool. What's some advice you heard when you were much younger, but you only appreciated a lot later in life?
Oh, yeah. My grandmother used to always say, "Give me my flowers while I can still smell them." And that's something I definitely appreciate now, like especially winning the award, being recognized for who you are and what you do by your family and peers, even strangers. Like that, people tend to make a big deal about you after you're dead. And it's like, well, what good is that?
Yeah. Now.
Why do I care about that? And so, yeah, I like I want to make sure that people around me, the people that I love and care about, feel valued, and or just people that I simply appreciate. You know, I've been in retail. Like, I've always lived in, I've worked in retail or just like service capacity always.
Yeah.
And so even in healthcare, that's service capacity where you're like, you smile when you see a person. And so I've always smiled around people. And it's interesting that in some communities, it's like you smiling at people is weird. Like, don't smile at people. And my family's from the South of like the southern states, like North Carolina.
Manhattan.
Yeah, you like mean mugging folks. In Philly, like, you mean mug. Like, don't smile because like people think you trying to line them up or something like that. Like, so yeah, like, give people their flowers while they can still smell them is important. And just, if you appreciate something, tell them. If you love someone, tell them. You know, if you like something that they did, tell them. It's just, life is just too short.
That's beautiful.
It is.
Yeah, it does. It makes me think of like if at like weddings when people do speeches and stuff, it's like a moment where you get to hear people's love towards yourself that you don't normally hear. And it's almost like, do we always need to wait for that one event, or can we like
It's
more
true.
frequently tell people?
Or even think about the funerals.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
that.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
everybody's like, yeah, and I'm just like, well, you know, but the flowers especially. Like, I no longer give flowers. I don't bring, send flowers at funerals because it's like, nah, there's no point in that.
Yeah, flowers from across the globe.
Yeah.
What's advice that you give to people often, if anything comes to mind?
Well, I would definitely say I talk a lot about being yourself and finding your own voice, and I have to give an ode back to Oscar for that, because it really is like, you're your best asset. The way you think, the way you move in this world. If you're a good person, then you have a lot to give just by being yourself. And walk within my love is something that I think about a lot. I think about just how this love culture is what I want people to have. I want all of us to just remember that we are all just humans. And there are so many distinct differences between all of us. But I want us to focus on the things that make us the same. Whenever that's possible, because it's not always possible, and it's important to acknowledge things that aren't so great. We have to, acknowledge these things so we can talk through them and work through them. But after that, or during that, while we're doing that, we still have to think about how we love each other as well. So, being yourself, and it's not always easy to love other people, even when you are naturally a person that is loving. We harden ourselves, like, especially if you come from an urban community. It's like, you got to be a certain way, even though it's not really who you are. Like, you're softy. And even in the business world, especially as a woman walking into a room where I have to be like I can't always be soft, So in order to get deals done and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so I understand, and I have the capacity to show up how I need to show up to execute. But at the same time, I'm still a human who wants to receive love and give love.
Yeah, but there's also love in opposition, and just kind of saying, to your children, like, you can't do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the limit. This is what can be firm, and still you do it in and out of love.
Yeah.
So
even team dynamics, like all of it. Yeah, it's true. Just boundaries.
Gandhi was, he was opposing the empire out of love, and it's just, that was how it was. So,
have you ever heard the song by Bjork called "All Is Full of Love"? Those lyrics are, just listen to, you might cry. But anyway, it's like her very first line is, "You'll be given love," and what she's just saying is, within your lifetime, you're going to be given love at some point, and just how, and you'll be taken care of. And what you're just saying just made me think of that.
Yeah,
and I was like, it's so important to keep those things in your mind, especially in times where you don't feel so good, or maybe you don't feel so loved or something.
Yeah, shout out to Bjork. She was
and talk about someone walking in her own shoes.
Yeah.
Like, she's
you need to send me that.
Yeah, she's lovely weird. Like, it just doesn't care. Like, she's who she is, and I like that a lot. Yeah.
I love that.
What's something that people aren't talking about enough?
Oh, let's see. Well, definitely the fact that the hospitality industry starts with the farmer. We just don't get enough credit for all that we bring to this industry.
The restaurant business.
The restaurant specifically.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of food, hospitality starts with food to me.
Okay.
We gather around meals, and when you go into a space, even for rest, lodging is beautiful and you rest and people know how to make it nice. But when you wake up, you got to eat. Before you go to bed, you got to eat. So like all those things, like food does become the epicenter of it. And restaurants and chefs tend to get a lot of, they just get all the love. They get all of the love with not remembering the hardworking farmer who thought about that carrot, 6 to 9 months before it was ever planted. So
You've spoken a lot about that, like you want to see the day that farmers can be as much of a rock star as a chef.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of rock star chefs. It's like a thing. But what about the farmers? And I feel like it's, maybe we're there or we're about to be there. We're close at the very least.
I mean, but like, how do we get there, right? I think about that too. It's like the contest. I was playing around with trying to figure out a contest for farmers that could be televised. Oh, yeah? And like trying to think of how.
kind of like the Top Chef.
Yeah,
but like that
similar. But it's like, I was like, but this carrot takes 60 days to mature.
That's a good idea, though.
Have me on as a
judge.
You want to be a show creator. No, you have to start. You have to be in the front of it.
I have been thinking about that for so many years.
Yeah.
Like I want to do chef stable for, the people that are farm operators and farm owners and just tell their stories.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. And I'm amazed that no one has done it yet.
Me too. And
It's
in my mind, I have an idea of how it could go, but it's almost like, I don't know if you remember Real World.
Of course, I certainly
But it's
do.
like Real World. It has to be over time.
Yeah, they need to live together in a house.
Yeah, like
maybe.
it has to be an over time thing. And then after that farmer gets, that farmer wins $100,000 to go start their farm type of thing.
Yeah.
But you got to get it funded.
Oh my God, it almost seems too obvious.
I swear I have
boom,
it.
there it is.
I've written it. I've literally written it twice, 2 different concepts. And it's just like,
They each have their like 1/4 acre space on this property and they each are farming it. And then
yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a doable thing.
Of course.
It really is. But but that's one of the things. Like, that's one of the things.
Okay, we're going to go off air now to have a meeting about this. We're going to figure out
But really just helping farmers. One thing people aren't talking about is how we can just lift up farmers more.
I agree.
Is there a culinary experience, either in childhood or it could be more recently, that really sticks out to you in your life that kind of, or not? Definitely. I mean, for some people, it's like, actually, no, I don't know.
No, I definitely have quite a few. Yeah. Let's see here. A culinary experience that sticks out. There might be too many. My brain is like fluttering. Can we come back to that one?
Of course, yeah. What's the best difficult decision you ever made? Or one of the best?
Okay, what is the best difficult decision I ever made? Oh, quitting my job, hands down.
Because you had a good pay.
Oh,
you had Social Security. You had retirement money.
Like that was a job I could have definitely just like coasted.
Yeah, you could have just done that.
I could have coasted. I had a parking spot in Center City, Philadelphia. That was mine.
Woo!
Yeah, like that was the best part of my job. Seriously, I was just like, okay, I could have stayed here forever.
I got a parking spot in Center City.
Yeah, and that I could use anytime I wanted on weekends too. Like I would park there and go do whatever, So that to me was the hardest decision, but that was the best decision that I've ever made. Like leaving security, like going to live on savings and then just figure it out. Like I had no plan when I resigned. There was no like, okay, Christa, it wasn't all like nothing. I was like, I quit and I'll be on an island in Martinique by myself. And like somebody else, like my mother was looking at me like, what do you mean? Like you have 2 kids, you are single, you have a house, you have a car, and you want to like just quit your job. It sounds insane. And
plus
like,
they were probably, your family was proud of you having this good job.
Oh, definitely. Like, you work for, I remember my grandmother saying, like, you work for such and such. Like, nobody leaves there. Like, you don't leave that type of job. Yeah. And I'm like, out of here. And, so I that was definitely it. That's the answer to that.
Back to what you said about growing up only seeing a certain path. It's like,
yes,
if you just stayed in that path, then what would have changed in the world?
Nothing. I know.
I mean, yes, you would have had your impact in the way you were helping people in that environment.
Not the same.
Not
It's not the same.
And somebody else, I mean, maybe someone else would have, but
someone else might be happy to do it, and that's...
But the ripple effect that I feel like FarmerJawn has been able to shepherd, right?
Course.
It's like that see it be it is just so strong. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Plus, Christa, there was an opportunity for somebody like you to come in with that message and have a real positive one.
Yeah.
Which makes you different from others in that space. Like you come at it from a very positive message.
Yeah.
I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like that.
And similar question, but different. What's like a best failure you've had? Something went wrong and it turned out to be a good thing.
I guess, let's see. I feel like, during this journey, I will say there's definitely been failures. I've lost land. That there's a whole article about it. Like I had a property. My first large farm was a 40,000 square foot, all greenhouses.
Wow.
That this man had came to me and was like, hey, after he saw an article about the tea company in the major paper in Philly, he reached out to me and was like, hey, I have land. You can grow herbs here. It's all in greenhouse. Like, this is perfect for you. And I came and looked at it and I'm like, this is a whole acre of just greenhouses. And I have been farming for 5 minutes. Like, I don't know. And I'm only a soil farmer. So I don't even understand what it is to grow in a greenhouse. And the first time he came to me, I told him no. I came to see it and I was like, no, thank you. I was like, this is really great. Thanks for thinking of me. But like, no thanks. And then he came back to me a month later and was like, come on, I think this is good for you. And like, just do it. And so this is before I had an attorney, like to review paperwork and all that. So I like entered into my first lease, my first commercial lease, pay him a lot of money and just like started. I was like, okay, now we're a big farm. Like we have a big operation now. And we ended up, those greenhouses ended up actually not being ready for winter. They weren't winterized. And so the boilers did not work. And so I had no heat. So I'm growing. I'm growing.
Goodness.
Spring, summer, rolling. We get to winter and I'm like, hey, is the
on.
boilers? Like, how do we turn this on? And he's like, oh, I'll get somebody out there and like whatever. I lost everything. I lost all of my crops.
Oh, man.
I lost all of it. And that's where I was like, you and I had a conversation yesterday about loss. And I was like, oh, I've definitely lost a lot of money and like had to rebuild.
Yeah.
But that was definitely it. But from that, FarmerJawn like took off based on that property because of how large scale it was. Like I was taking old florist greenhouses that were built 100 years ago and turning them into a food growing space. And so like everybody was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is Black woman doing this, da da da. And then and then I lost it all and like really needed the community to rally around me. And so that story got picked up by Eater and like it was a thing. And then FarmerJawn became, even more popular and like people knew who I was. Again, it just gave me more visibility. Yeah. It was a tragedy for me because it's like, damn, I gotta like recover. But it also, beauty came out of this trauma and allowed me to have, lead me to triumph.
Yeah. Were you really scared when that happened?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. It was just like, but like I wasn't stiflely scared. It's like I'm scared, but I gotta do. Like, all right, so what's next? And my pivot was just to go back to a smaller farm and figure out what to do, and a farm that we still have now, which was also an acre, but it was outside. It was outside. Yeah.
Yeah. The boiler also needs to have an emergency boiler. Mm-hmm. You have 2 boilers.
Yeah,
so it doesn't work.
And it also needed a generator.
And a generator.
Yeah, it needed a lot. And I just was like, I learned all of that. So I learned a lot.
Yep.
Exactly, right? That's what happens with failure.
The best teacher.
It is.
The best teacher. Failure is the best teacher.
Mm-hmm.
My final question is, if you could imagine, let's just say it's, 100 years from now, like what would, in your wildest dreams, like what would the new urban lifestyle look like to you? And also, I just want to add as a little side to that, do you also see like more people from these underserved communities also going out into the countryside and living those lifestyles as well and entering into those kind of worlds? And what do you see in the?
I see that ownership. I see a path to land ownership, and I see us looking at people living, an hour away out of town or 45 minutes out of town, half an hour, and coming into town to interact with each other but like having a solace, having some peace and solace outside if they so choose. And I see that our food systems, it does mean like having this urban farming, really like that becoming also a lifestyle where like neighborhoods have their own farmers. again. And like I see the metropolitans, like the way that they invest money into our food system needs to shift. And like, how about we pay farmers? How about everybody, every community, every neighborhood in Philadelphia? There's 46 neighborhoods. And so for every neighborhood has its own farmer. Or if we need, for smaller
Just
neighborhoods,
like
maybe we give them
schools
3.
or-
Yeah, like, you know, or maybe if it's small enough, then 3 farmers. I mean, one farmer can have 3 neighborhoods. Something like that. But like, they have a quarter acre here, you know, a quarter acre there. And it's just like throughout. And like, this is the land that they take care of. And then each week there's a go to market, or people understand or know how to harvest, something like that. But we can definitely commercialize local farming. We can definitely do it so that it still makes money, because that's what people care about. Like governments, they care about things that are revenue generating, but they also have to impact the community, and we can do all of that. Just shifting and like really focusing on employing a farmer for each neighborhood. That's where I think it hits.
Yeah.
Small scale farming is changing the world.
It is.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, thank you very much. This is a great talk.
Christa,
Oh, I'm going to leave you with my last one real quick. My food.
Yes. Sorry.
No, so one of my best food experiences was definitely a smoked red cabbage. That I never had this type of vegetable in this way, and it was at a restaurant in Delaware that I really, really enjoyed, and it was healthy and it was just delightful. Yeah, a restaurant called Bardea in Delaware.
nice.
One of my faves. But
Nice.
there's that.
Excellent.
All right.
And where can people find you online?
Yeah, FarmerJawn is FarmerJawn.co is my website. FarmerJawn _ is everything else. But find me on social media at Instagram and Facebook, and pretty soon TikTok.
And in case the listener is wondering, because they probably are, because we never said in the beginning, what is Jawn?
Jawn, JAWN, so not John. And it is a Philly word. It means person, place, or thing. It means anything. And so when I named the company FarmerJawn, it really was a love note to my city that anybody can farm, or at least you should know who your farmer is. And so now that message proliferates for everyone who eats food, which is all of us.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. What an ending. Thank you for taking the time to come and have this beautiful conversation. This was a good episode. I hope everyone liked it. I hope you guys are well. Don't forget to share and subscribe to the channel, and send us notes about your appreciation. We'll see you next time, folks. We're out.
Wow.
Hope you're enjoying the podcast. These are important conversations, and we're really excited to have them and to share them with everyone. You can check out the work that we do at the Market Gardener Institute. You can check out our website, themarketgardener.com. Our mission is to multiply the number of small ecological farms around the world. And we do this by offering training, online courses to new aspiring farmers, but also to seasoned growers. We're helping them take it to the next level. So you can check out the work that we do. You can follow us on social media. You can sign up to our newsletter to get a lot of freebies about gardening, farming, but also about how small-scale farming is changing the world. And that's really what we're all about, and that's really what this is all about. So again, super excited that you guys are on board. We are changing the world.